Well, if you clicked on this episode and saw the title and or the description and or you've been listening the last few weeks, you probably know what's coming. This is officially after 357 episodes, I think. Over 100 interviews. Yeah, this is it. This is the last episode.
Farewell tour.
The farewell tour. Yeah, that's right. This is the last goodbye.
And it might or might not be like George Strait, how this is on his third farewell tour.
Yeah, in 6 months you might look up and we're back. No, I think this is it. Like I said, after we started this in
March of 2020.
April, March 2020.
Yeah. And
have released at least one episode. Sometimes two.
Sometimes three.
For a phase, there are 3 episodes every single week for the last 3 years. And we're going to get into a lot more, later about what we learned and, the fun we've had and all that good stuff. But I think probably wondering why. I think the biggest thing is just, I think both of us are feeling, despite loving, absolutely love this, right? This has been a huge joy for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
It's been so much fun getting to meet all these people, and definitely has 0 regrets at all. But life circumstances today are a little bit different than they were. I didn't think I had my second kid yet when we started this podcast, or maybe I just had him. So he was born February 2020. So I just had him.
Okay,
I just had my second son. Now just had our third a few weeks ago, 2 months ago now. But yeah, and Tyler, you're crazy busy as well. So I think just life circumstances today are much different than they have been.
Yeah.
And I think it's just time, despite how much we love this, I think it's time to focus attention on things that are just a little bit more demanding.
Right now. And I think listeners out there, like you may be asking yourself, like, is it me? Is it
what could we have done differently?
What could we have done differently? And the question is, it is you. It is not us.
Yeah, it's 100% your fault.
Because I'm gonna be honest, like I'm like, and then you start talking. It's like I feel like I'm getting broken up with.
Yeah.
It totally feels like
this is an awkward one-way conversation.
You know those like roundabout conversations where they just start like saying stuff like, oh well, here's the reason, and here's this, and there's that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, he's breaking up with me. I know that's where it's going.
We are breaking up with you. That's essentially what's happening here. You've been dumped.
but reality is you're exactly right. We've been talking about a lot of things on this show. We've been talking about how to focus on your home and your family, and if we're going to make an impact on this country and right the ship, that's where it starts. And as the 3 years have progressed, it has been an unbelievable ride. We've had unbelievable conversations, unbelievable guests, unbelievable interaction with our listeners, with our community, and the support has been like beyond what I could have expected. But life and obligations for you, myself, and Darren for quite some time.
Newsflash, Darren hasn't been a part of this in a while.
Wait, what?
Behind the scenes he has, but obviously on air, on camera.
And so it's one of those things. Ultimately, we had to make the decision, and here's why. We could have maybe kept this going a little bit. It would have looked very different. It would have been a disservice, I think, to all the listeners out there, because we are asking you to share and give us your time to listen. Whether you're doing something and listening to us in the background, whatever, we are asking of you to spend time out of your day with us. And honestly, between Ben, myself, and Darren, it's been one of those things like we can't commit to the quality of content like we did earlier at this point in our life, just because we are being pulled so many different directions. And you and I have had a lot of conversations like, hey, I have a really hard time putting it out there if it's not the content that we can really feel proud about producing. Not that it's not authentic, not that it's not thought through. Not that we're not, but it's, if we're going to do this, we're all in. And that's just how you and I are wired. That's just not how, we can't just kind of show up and just, all right, well, let's talk about something today. And that's just not fair to, I think, listeners out there that have followed us this entire time. And because you're expecting, okay, hey, look, we're going to get the Tyler and Ben and, occasionally Darren that brings it and, provides good content for us and good information and good thoughts and good questions. And we're just at a point where we're being pulled in a number of directions that we have to focus our attention on.
And by the way, they're all good things too.
Yeah.
It's not
absolutely.
It's not like we're stepping away because there was a death in the family or a medical issue. It's nothing. It's all good things.
Yeah.
That are happening right now. So thankfully, we're stepping away because there's a lot of good going on.
Yeah.
And it's not like things that demand our attention that are negative. It's positive things that demand our attention.
Right.
And we'll talk about this in a minute. I think at a certain point, you need to start living.
Yeah.
And taking action on the things that you talk about.
Yep.
And in my opinion, we've covered the gambit. Now, could we there's endless, obviously there's enough craziness going on in the world that there's endless content, right?
Yep.
But I think when I think back to why, at least for me personally, why I wanted to start this podcast, and I'd love to hear your take on, what you've learned, what you thought coming into this process and what it's turned out to be. But coming into it was very much a success-driven mentality for me. And it was, I want to go find the secret, right? I want to go find the thing that's going to unlock this next level for me. Mm-hmm. And I hope that a bunch of people listening can get that out of it as well.
Yeah.
What I've found over these last 3 years, I think we have our answer, which is there is no secret. Like there's many different paths. There's many different avenues that you can go down. Mm-hmm. And it's just competitive. I mean, not competitive. It's repetitive work over time. That's the key.
You're not wrong with competitive though.
Not competitive. Yeah, not wrong with that either. So again, I think at this point, yes, a lot of great things are pulling pulling us in different directions. But at the same time, I think not that it's ever done, but I think we've said all there is to say about at least that topic.
Yeah, I think without us, because I would argue that you and I are in a transitional type phase in our life. Not that like, all right, hey, I'm quitting my career and I'm doing something completely different, but like in a mindset, we are in we're stepping into a new phase of life. Like you with kids, right? And your boys are getting older, and there's just certain things that you're going to be stepping into, whether it's coaching and the volunteering that we talk about. And, there are just certain things that it's a new season for you. I'm stepping into a new season. There's a handful of things in my life that are brand new to me that I'm going to be following and learning and figuring out about, on myself. And I'm going through a 3-year coaching course right now on calling and purpose. Like, what is my calling? What is my purpose? What am I meant to do? What are my giftings? What are my tools? Like, really deep dive into that. And so transitionally, I think it's like we've got to go live this. We've got to go walk the talk that we've been talking for 3 years. Mm-hmm. And then look, you and I would come back and be like, okay, hey, look, now that we've gained some more experience, now that we've gained some more knowledge, failures, success, whatever it is, okay, hey, look, now we can share that. But the focus has really got to be on, okay, this next phase of life, we've really got to be all in on it. We've got to be really, like, you talk about things that we've learned over the year, and I don't know if you're ready for that or, your script calls for it a little bit later, but your point about I wanted to unlock the secret of success. And I 100% agree with you. I learned that the secret to success is time and experience and consistency.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking, all right, hold on. We're going to meet somebody that built something that is going to be like, hey, here's what you do. Here's the playbook, right? We talk about that all the time as former athletes. It's like, give me a playbook, man, and I'll go execute.
Yep.
I'll go run my routes. I'll go run my coverages. I'll make my blocks. I'll do whatever you need me to do. Just tell me what it is. Well, there's not that.
Yeah. Yeah, very exciting but disappointing answer all at the same time.
Yeah, but what there is we learned a crap ton of tools that can help us on that journey along the way, whether it be nutrition, whether it be rest, whether it be mental toughness, whether it be emotional and mental health. I mean, there are a ton of tools, scheduling. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are a ton of tools that I believe that we have acquired over 3 years. And hopefully if you maybe haven't listened to everything, go back, because there is gold.
Yeah, I'd be curious how many people listening to this right now have been with us since the beginning.
100. and hey,
I'm imagining most people have not.
Yes.
Newcomers coming along. So I'm with you. Like,
we love you, Mom. Appreciate you, Mom.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, to my knowledge, now again, this is our first time ever doing this. To my knowledge, these episodes are going to stand forever.
Yeah.
We're not physically going to go take them down. I think they're going to stay. So to your point, go back and listen to the old stuff. I think that's the case too. I was this morning, I was searching up some like cattle podcasts, and there was stuff that like they haven't posted since 2016. Yeah. Okay, so it'll still be on there. Yeah. And by the way, again, back to the positive. Like Tyler and I are still great friends. Darren, we're all still okay friends. We all still work together. Like we're not. It's not like we had a rift or a bad an argument.
I would argue the exact opposite,
right.
And maybe you think differently. I would say this has brought you and I extremely way closer than we were before the podcast started.
Absolutely. Because it's, we've talked about things, I've shared things with you and the people listening that I barely even talk about with my wife sometimes, which is, newsflash, that's not a good thing. But the point is, for whatever reason, it's just, it's bro time, right? It's time that we can sit down and just be transparent about things that are going on.
Yep.
So hopefully that gives some clarity as to why, but I thought it'd be fun to look back. And for those of you that haven't been with us forever, what have been some of our favorite episodes? What have been some of our favorite guests? What have we learned over this time? I think I want to start with you. What we touched on a second ago, what did you, and I'm not talking about from a listenership standpoint or goals for the podcast, just from a content perspective, like what did you coming into this, what did you hope to get out of this? What was your goal for not only yourself, but listeners as far as the actual content goes and what we would be talking about?
So I think it's kind of double-edged is I really did want to just learn from a lot of these people. I honestly I'm always hungry for mentors. I'm always hungry for experience that I can just soak up from someone else. And so I honestly was most excited just to learn from people, in whatever facet, because, whether you're talking about being a CBD grower or you're talking about
that was episode like 9,
something
like that.
Right. Or you're talking about starting a nutritional supplement company, or you're talking about, being a mental health coach. Like you can take things from all of them and apply it to whatever situation. And so I was just really excited about that. Now, again, I think I had some unrealistic expectations. Like, all right, we're gonna unlock the secret. Like we're gonna figure it out. Like, and it is gonna be, and I think too, because of the pandemic, because of where we were at when we really kind of like ramped this thing up. I mean, in all transparency, I was hoping this could be a full-time gig. Yeah, honestly.
Yeah.
I love doing this. Like, this is like happy place for me. I've had like mentors in the past that are in media. Like, this is something you have to do. You got to get into. And I've always been like really like kind of a coward when it comes to like, I'll just dip my toe in. Hey, if you ask me, I'll do something, but I'm not going to go put myself out there. This was my first, like, I'm putting it out there. Like, let's go. And I've learned a lot about myself. I learned that I'm not as good as I thought I was. But I also had a hope that, okay, hey, look, develop and learn things and make this a full-time gig, because I mean, how great would it be? Like, this is truly what we could do for a living. Yeah. Is just have conversations with people.
Yeah.
So, and I learned a handful of things. I think if we wanted to do that, we had to take the risk and we had to be all in.
Right.
and we were in a season where we didn't feel comfortable. I don't think walking away from everything else and just doing this. But I wouldn't have done it any other way, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Looking back at it.
No, I thought it was a great balance of we got to live our everyday life and have our day jobs, and then this was kind of a blow off steam time coming in and having these. Yeah, I'm with you. When I first came in, and I shared this before, but again, most people probably hadn't heard earlier on episodes, but my first podcast I remember listening to was 2017. I'd heard of podcasts before, but I never really got into them. And Andy Frisella was one of the first podcasts I ever listened to. And I just remember there was a time in my life when I was actually transitioning to a new career. I'd just left the fitness industry. I was moving into commercial real estate, which is what we do now, which is literally my first question was, what is commercial real estate? I had no idea what I was doing. No clue. And so Andy hit me in that perfect time in my life where I was having to start over, and I was having to get after it in a new way, a very uncomfortable way that I never had to before. You know, I was leaving an industry I knew very well for an industry I obviously didn't know anything about. And so I remember the impact that he didn't know this, right? And when we met him, finally getting to meet him, that was really cool. He had no clue who I was, right? Because I was just one of the thousands and millions of listeners that he has. But without knowing it, he was a mentor for me. Without knowing it, he was pouring into my heart at that time and teaching me how to go about this corporate business world. And so that's the hope I had coming into this in 2020 was how cool would it be to have an impact on somebody like that? And somebody who's in my shoes 5 years ago, 6 years ago now, and they're starting something new. They're starting a new phase of their life. How cool would it be if something I said or, conversations we had or a guest that we had on, how cool would it be if that impacted them as much as I was impacted by a podcast of all things? And so that was my hope coming in. And again, I don't know. Nobody's personally come up to me and said, you had this sort of impact on me. So I have no idea if we have or not had that impact on people. But hopefully there's somebody out there listening to this who's like, yes, that podcast was getting me through some times. I would sit there and listen to these guys while I was working out or while I was doing yard work or while I was cleaning dishes or whatever. And they helped me through some tough times. That was my hope coming into this. Along with the success thing that was my hope. Again, at the time was somebody's going to teach me a secret here that I just haven't learned yet. And so that's the ironic thing is we did unlock the secret to success, which is there is no secret to success. Because of the 100 and some interviews, everybody we've talked to has gone about their own way. They're in different industries. Now, the end result was whatever if you deem success to be money and, status and things like that, ultimately that's where they've ended up, but they all got there a different way. And that's what I love is there's so many different paths. There's not just a secret. So that's the cool thing about this is there is no secret. But it's also in some ways the disappointing part about it at the same time. What about guest wise? When you look back at guests, like who are some of when you think back, who are some of your favorite ones that you think about?
So different for different reasons. Like there was guys that I was just like, you are just a super cool dude. Like, or women, they're like, you were just an absolute rock star. Like the ones that really stick out to me, I remember kind of just like walking out like, oh my gosh, my mind is blown. Nir Eyal is still one. His just like ideology about like being very efficient with time and just like how to manage your time best was really powerful for me because I was not great at structuring my time management. So he was one that was really good.
Would you say you learned the most probably from that episode?
I learned and applied the most and still use his techniques and his coaching.
Cool. Yeah, that's cool.
As much as any that I have. Donnie Vincent was another one that I was like, I just want your life. Like, I want to do what you do. Like, he's another one. And for those of you who don't know, he does unbelievable, like, hunting videos. And, like, his media company, what they do is just unreal. Like, it's so cool. Matt Frazier's one, too, that, like, I think is kind of surreal still. Like, you still, like, he is, and especially having gotten into CrossFit, like, shortly after that, like the appreciation of who he is as a CrossFit athlete, and then being able to just text with him, randomly is like it. That's still kind of surreal. And then like there, and there was like,
what about the most fun? Who's some of them? Who'd you have the most fun with?
I mean,
because you learned from the most from Near.
Yeah.
Just the coolest like guy you want to be like was Donnie Vincent, Matt Frazier. Who's somebody that you
like? David's about to.
I think y'all had a lot of fun with Aaron Watson. That was a good one.
That was my answer.
Yeah,
that was my answer. Yeah. Aaron Watson and Akash Singh.
Yeah,
Akash Singh
were rolling.
Were my two where I had the most fun. I think.
Yeah,
Aaron Watson surprised me.
100%.
And I know he surprised Darren. Darren went into that one kind of like, what, we got to go up to Choctaw. Like, of course he was fine and excited to do it. But yeah, I think that one surprised all of us with how much fun. That was a great call, David.
Good. And he's one that like my kids love. I love. Like I've listened to him for years. And that was like probably the most carefree, natural interview that like I've ever been a part of. We laughed.
We say it every time, but that one literally we could have gone six hours.
100%.
Because he was just so, and we had to stop because he had a concert that night that we got to be backstage for. So that was a blast.
Yeah, that was a good call. Yeah. That was a really good call. And Jacob Schick from an actual story telling, like that was one of the like. I was just like locked in. He
was our first ever guest.
Yeah.
If you haven't heard that one, go back. I think it's episode 3 maybe.
Yeah.
Because Darren's was episodes 1 and 2.
He was 3.
Yeah, he was 3. That was a wild story.
That was a good one. I mean, he was great. But then, I mean, the other military guys that we've had on too were phenomenal.
Yeah. I think every military person definitely has an impact.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think of most fun, I think Akash and I think Aaron Watson.
Yeah.
I think who I learned the most from, and not just our episode, but just over the years, is Dr. Lane Norton.
Yeah.
Was a great one. Just
he was.
Knowledge-wise, the dude's unbelievable. Far and away, the most impactful, the one that I think back and just sticks out like a sore thumb to me, and you probably know what I'm going to say, is the Drew Robinson.
Yeah.
That episode.
Yep.
And, I mean, it was 2 years ago, and I still get, like, choked up just thinking about his story.
Yeah.
And if you hadn't listened to that one again, that was by far and away head and shoulders above the rest. The most impactful for me was hearing his story. If you don't know who Drew Robinson is, he's a former professional baseball player, dealt with mental health his whole life, tried to take his own life in 2020, right after the lockdowns and shutdowns, ended up surviving, and now the impact he's making on people. He travels around. He works for the San Francisco Giants now. And he travels around and shares his story and helps. He's their mental health and wellness coach. So yeah, he was that episode rocked my world.
Yeah.
Just because I'd heard of people sort of close to me. Not really even that close to me, committing or dying by suicide. But that one made it, especially being a father.
Yeah.
And when he talked about when he was lying on the floor upstairs and his dad had come into his home gym downstairs and worked out and left and never even didn't want to bother his son. So didn't even realize his son was laying upstairs dying.
Yep.
That one was heavy. That one was really heavy, but a very impactful episode. I think about obviously Andy Frisella getting to talk to him.
I was gonna say for you for sure. I mean, awesome. I loved him too. I thought he was one of my. He surprised me in our interview of him, just because I had listened to him as well prior to that, and his relatability on ours was like, it kind of surprised me.
Yeah,
because he's like this big, burly, strong, like aggressive, dude, and I don't know. It was a more relatable, transparent podcast than I anticipated it being. Yeah. And I'd heard his story before too, but even just hearing it, talking to us, it was real, right? And it wasn't like prepared. It wasn't. He just was like, I'm gonna put it out there. Let's go. I am who I am. So I appreciated that one too.
Yeah.
I got a question for you. So very, pandemic-ish. Which of our virtual guests would you go back if you could pick one and do an in-person interview with them?
That's a great question. It might be Andy. I guess we did sort of get to, because we got to be on his podcast.
Yeah.
So if we're taking him off the table, since we sort of did get to meet him in person, or we did get to meet him in person. Oh, that's a great question. I think Michael Irvin would have been really fun.
That's a good one. That is a good one.
I think Michael Irvin would have, again, if you didn't listen to that one way early on, he was so funny. My gosh, he was so funny.
Rolling.
And we said this all the time. The virtual ones were great, is awesome, and we're super glad technology allowed us to do that. But there's something about being in person with people and getting to shake their hand and have a conversation face to face. I think Michael Irvin would have been a really fun one to do in person. What about you? Who do you think?
And again, we kind of did at the Super Bowl, but it was like 5 minutes.
Oh, Gary V.
Gary V. Yeah. I think Gary V in person. Like if we could have been
the busiest person on earth.
If we could have had him on the couch in here for an hour and a half, like that would have been.
Yeah. He was one of our only repeat guests. Gary Vaynerchuk was one of our only. How wild is that when you think about the world of social media?
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
We had him on twice.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, like you said, we got to do it in person, but it was like literally 8 minutes.
Yeah. Look, and
but it was a powerful 8 minutes.
Here's the deal. Here's the deal, though, is that is a testament to, and we've talked about it, like how important relationships are. Like we are a nobody to him, and he through Sleep Number, seeked us out to say, hey, I want to come back on while we're at the Super Bowl. Gary V.
Yeah.
Like hey, I really enjoyed those guys. I want to come back and I want to do another one with these guys. And again, we're a nobody and there was really no value, but for some reason we just weren't total douchebags.
Yeah.
Which it was a unique deal. We was at out of body experience to not be one, but it was like be likable.
Yeah.
And people will want to do things with you.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was one that I would have loved to just have, like, because he's just in the short times that we had with him, and we had some technical difficulties the first time, so it was limited, and like the amount of just knowledge he spits off in just those short interviews we did. Like, can you imagine if you locked him down for an hour?
Well, which is impossible because the guy is the busiest human on earth.
For sure.
I'm looking it up because this is how impactful it was. I can't even remember his name. But you talk about somebody we did virtually. The guy that sold his beverage company.
In San Diego.
Yes. What was his name? I'm gonna look it up.
He was one of those guys like I could just hang out with that dude.
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah,
you wouldn't obviously can't even remember his name, but that's one I wish we could. He was just such a cool dude, like so under the radar, such a laid back, and the dude was worth had sold one company for $100 million and was working on another one. I'm sure he sold that one since then. Anyway, we'll look it up. I also loved Brandon Marshall was really cool, and I know you have a good relationship with Brandon. That was around right after I Am Athlete really took off, and how he turned that into from the small little one man venture to now it's a massive much I thought his story was really because I remember thinking back when he played and just his punk tendencies, right, and how much of a jerk he seemed like, and he couldn't have been nicer.
Yeah.
I mean, God, he couldn't have been
so far from
and we saw him this last year at the Super Bowl. He remembered, maybe just because obviously he associates me with you, but remembered me, and like that was so for somebody like that was really a fun one too.
Totally agree.
Knees over toes guy.
Knees over toes.
Yeah.
So that's one.
That was a fun one.
That's one I think of all of our guests, I've probably heard him brought up more than any other guest, like just in casual conversation.
Yep.
Like that he is brought up more. It'd be maybe just because I'm getting older and it's like relevant in my community.
Yeah. Which, by the way, I've been doing his program and my knees have never felt better.
Yes. It's legit.
Never felt better. Yeah.
It is absolutely legit. But I have more people like, oh, dude, the knees over toes. I'm doing this. And it's like, yeah, dude, he's actually a really cool dude.
Yeah.
Like a really cool dude.
Yeah. Josh Landon is the guy's name.
There you go. Josh Landon.
Josh
All right.
Landon. Just
found it.
Just found it. What about, and I actually, because I'm a weirdo, I actually wrote a list. So we don't have to do mine until you do yours. But what are some things that you learned over these last few years? So obviously all the people we've met, but like what are some lessons that you're going to take away from the last 3 years? Maybe you didn't know before. Maybe you hadn't thought about as much before.
Yeah.
What are some things you think about?
I think like big theme things that my perspective has shifted on is being selfish is not being selfish.
Yeah.
Remember how we were fighting Darren on that?
Yes.
Like, no, that's not.
That's a great one.
And his perspective on, look, you have got to focus on what you need to do in order to get where you need to get. I think he may have left some things out, but even since, and I've people, teachers, pastors have reinforced it since, but talking and with all of these individuals that have set out a goal and met a goal and then have a ecosystem around them that is healthy, it starts with, look, one, you have to take care of yourself nutritionally, from a fitness standpoint, from a mental health standpoint, relationally. You have to. You absolutely have to, or else nothing else matters. Nothing else works. And I was in a phase when we started where I was pouring out, and my cup was very rarely getting filled back up, because I just thought the more I give, the more karma is going to come back and it's going to be better. And I don't think it's a bad thing to just really want to help and serve people. Totally fine.
Of course not.
But I'm not kidding you, I was on 5 nonprofit boards.
Yeah, we used to call you Mr. Mayor.
Bro, I was on so much that it got to the point where I started resenting doing things for people.
Yeah.
Because everybody just wanted, and I wouldn't say no. And I felt guilty. And then I'm learning, and I'm like, listen, like I'm not giving you anything of quality anymore. Now I'm just giving you like a shell of myself, because I haven't been able to say no to anybody, and I've neglected myself. I've neglected my family, and I'm just trying to do things because that's the good thing to do, and it's all going to come back. And what I learned was that's not the right way to approach it. The right way to approach it is, look, get yourself, get your family in a great place. Focus on really building a strong foundation there. Get healthy there. And then you can do so much more for so many more people. Mm-hmm. And
yeah, it seems counterintuitive, but
yeah. And even work, right? Like being like locked in and like, look, success, it means spending time and expending effort for an extended amount of time into building something so that you can then, with your time and treasures, give to other people. But if you are just building something and you don't have any stability, you don't have the resources to give to other people, and you're trying to, you're really not offering much. You're really not offering much help.
Yeah.
Like, build something so that you can then give it away. Yes. Don't give something away while you're building something.
Right. Yeah, it is funny because I do remember specifically having that argument with Darren, because he's the most demonstrative person I've ever met about being selfish and the importance of being selfish.
Yeah.
Nobody I'd known had ever outright said it like he says it.
Which it's funny, because if you didn't have that conversation with him, you're like, he's the most selfless person.
That's my point. Which is ironic, because yes, he's so demonstrative about take care of yourself, yet he gives more than any person I've ever met. His time, his money, his talent, he gives it all away.
Yeah.
And he's willing to take the shirt off his back for anybody. And yet he knows the importance of, well, if I don't do this, and this to recharge myself, I won't be able to give to other people like that. So yeah, you nailed that. That was a concept that was foreign to me, which is I have to be more selfish.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's something that was never.
I think that's part of this decision, is that we've got to be able to focus on really just kind of ramping up through this next phase of life, so that we can then share more, with our family, with our friends, with maybe another podcast at some point. But in order to do so, we've got to really focus on building us right now.
Yeah. So here's my list, and I wrote it down just as I was thinking. And I could have sat down for 2 hours and probably put more. This isn't really necessarily in order, but I'd like to just get your take on these. Number one, we don't have to go too far into, because we've already talked about it. There's no magic secret, one best way, and no one has it all figured out. That's one of my biggest lessons. Is everybody we've interviewed, over 100 people, it's helped me realize there's nothing special about this person other than they didn't quit and they worked at it.
Yep.
That's pretty much the secret there. Number 2, this is one of the big ones, is learn to love waiting. In other words, delayed gratification, whether it's you're wanting a new car, a new house, new job, new relationship, whatever it is, or success in general. Learn the concept, embrace the concept of delayed gratification. I think if I can teach my kids anything, obviously I want to teach them a lot, but one of them right up there, one of the values I want to teach them is being able to wait. Wait for really, really good things.
Totally agree.
And
hold on, waiting is not a passive act.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Expand on that. Go for it.
Yeah, I was just going to say waiting is not, what Ben's saying is waiting is not just waiting for things to come to you. It's having patience and endurance to withstand enough time to when you get to that goal.
That's right.
Look, one, you're not you're not putting yourself in a bad position financially. You're not getting to a place prematurely so that it cannot be sustained, right? And prime story that I've told millions of times on the show is my journey to the NFL. Like, had I not gone through the 3 years of just like beat down, I would not have been in the NFL at 32 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And if I had gotten drafted, I would have been out at 22. And Fresno, I love you, but I'd have been selling insurance in Fresno right now.
Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. I love y'all. But like that wasn't the path for me.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, way worse example, but very tangible right now is in the area we live in, everybody's driving a new car, right? Everybody's balling, right? Everybody's got the big house, expensive cars, right? Everybody's going on vacations.
Yep.
So for me, it's being okay with the other financial goals, which to me are long-term financial goals that I want to work towards now.
Yep.
Being okay with focusing on those and delaying, the brand new car, the bigger house, right? The crazy vacation, right? Being okay.
That buy new cars.
Yeah, we're in the market for a new car right now. And instead of going out and taking a big fat loan on something, I want to pay cash for it.
Yep.
And so that's what we're working for is saving up the money to be able to pay cash for the new car. So for me, it's being okay with driving a car that's from 2014. Oh my gosh, it's a 2014 when everybody else is driving a 2023.
Yeah.
And that's a dumb example, but to me, being okay with waiting.
Put Wood in a minivan, you can pay cash for it right now.
Yeah, that's true. Number 3, again, these are in no particular order, but if you hate your job, either find things you do like about it or start using your off hours to work towards something that you do want.
That's good.
Again, very personal story. About a year or two ago, my wife and I were having a conversation. I was ready to be done with the commercial real estate. It had been 3 or 4 years. There were things about it I didn't like. I didn't want to keep doing it. And she really helped me reset my mentality of, you have a very flexible schedule. You're making great income. You work with awesome people. Quit being so focused on the parts that you don't like about it and start focusing on those good things. Yeah. And literally ever since that conversation, my mentality switched. And now I really can't imagine doing anything else. Yeah. Now, will I do something else one day? Probably, likely. Yeah. It's likely.
Yeah.
But right now where I sit today, I'm so okay and more than okay. I'm excited about where I'm at because of that conversation. Yeah. And it's finding those aspects. Again, is commercial real estate the most exciting thing in the world? No, not necessarily. But I love the schedule, I love the income, and I love the people I work with. And that's what I hold on to. Yeah. So if you're sitting here and you're thinking, I don't really love my job, my challenge to you would be find parts about it that you do love if you can't change it. And even if you can change it, still find things that you do love. Yeah. And then start using those hours that you're off, because you don't work all the time. I know for us, we're on the clock, off the clock quite a bit, but there's time in the day.
Yeah.
If we like you're starting your cattle business.
Yep.
With your free time, right? Yeah. And so there's always hours in the day to start doing other things that you really want to do.
Definitely. And I'm going to add one to your list. If you don't like it, find the things you love, or find things within that job that will teach you and prepare you for the next one.
Yes.
Because I know for me, I started enjoying it a whole lot more when it was like, oh, you know what? I can learn more about being a CEO. I can learn more about what it means to be a CFO. I can learn more about what it means to do marketing and business development. I know, like, there's elements of every job that you can take that are going to train and prepare you for whatever is next.
That's right.
So like, think of it as, and it's hard because like, think of it as school, education, because I hated school. I hated that. But if you think about it, okay, look, if I really focus and like go all in on these things, think of how much more prepared I'm going to be for that next one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This next one ties into that, and we'll tie into the next one. The phrase "find your passion" has been bastardized and taken by TikTok and Instagram and cheapened a little bit and made cheesy, but it really is true. Finding something that you can truly attack. Now, you're not going to love every aspect of it. That's not what I'm saying. But finding something beyond a financial goal or beyond a status goal, finding something you can truly sink your teeth into is very valuable. And again, it doesn't mean that every aspect of it you love, but finding an industry, finding a role, finding something about what you do, and finding the passion behind that and how important that is. Number 5, again, ties in. You have more time in the day than you think, while at the same time, you have less time in general than you think. So it's kind of a paradox there. You have more time in the day, I would argue, than what you're giving yourself credit for. How much time do you waste online or whatever? Yeah. But then at the same time, keeping the broader picture of, dude, this thing goes fast.
Real fast.
Really fast. You're going to look up and your kids are 6, 3, and newborn, and you're like, what happened? My oldest was just born yesterday, I thought. So that kind of ties in with if you have more time to focus on things, right, and do things that you can fill that day, but don't lose the perspective of how quickly this whole thing goes.
Yes.
Number 6, you're biologically wired to never completely be satisfied. Don't fall in the trap of thinking that the next thing is the thing, whether it's money, job, relationships, etc. The excitement's likely going to wear off. I think this is one of the biggest things I've learned as well. Yeah. Coming into this podcast, I had yet to establish myself in our business, and so there was that carrot out there of this certain income is going to provide me with everything that I've wanted in this world, and there will be no problems whatsoever once I reach that top. And then I got there, and it was like, wait a minute. I want the next thing now. Yep. I want the higher income. I want the next part of the next status symbol. And so, and we read through that book, The Molecule of More. Yeah. It's actually a good thing that we're wired in a way. Yeah. It can be detrimental in certain ways, but it's actually a survival instinct that you're not satisfied.
It is a good thing. It is a good thing, but it forces you to be intentional about appreciating each and every moment and each and every success. Like, you have to stop and say, okay, hey, look, all right, like that was huge. Like, I can't believe that I closed out the year the way that I did, or I can't believe that, hey, I finished that job that I didn't think was going to happen, or I can't believe my kindergartner just graduated from kindergarten. Like, celebrate those. You have to be intentional about those, because otherwise you're going to just let this pursuit of more overwhelm and overtake everything. And there's got to be, and I hate the word balance, I just can't think of anything better right now. There's got to be some sort of balance around appreciating the moment and successes, and then always wanting to progress, because otherwise, and there's a handful of people, and I think our generation is different than the previous, and that previous generation is different than the previous, because previous generations was like, get the job at the factory and, putting food on the table.
You don't have to love it. Just do it.
Just do it.
It's your duty.
Just show up.
Yeah. And there's a certain value to that, for sure.
But I think we're wired different. So look, there's more progress. There's more innovation. There's more things that we think, and there's more pursuit. But don't let that be what your entire life is.
Yeah. Thankfully, we're in a position in 2023 that we can be a little pickier. Yeah. Thankfully, right? That just shows how good
for the time being
things are for us, right? But if you think that I'm just going to do this job, even if I hate it, because the money is going to be the thing that satisfies me, from personal experience, you're sadly mistaken.
Yep.
The money is not going to be because you're going to get there and you make that certain income, and that's why it ties into the passion thing. Again, I hate it that it's become such a cheesy phrase, but it truly is. And I was just having this conversation with a coworker of ours who's been very wildly successful, but he's a little younger than us. Been wildly successful. Had an amazing year last year. Was, I think, top 3 in our company. And his comment was, "This doesn't feel like I thought it would." And he's kind of thinking, like, well, what gives? Like, well, I made all this crazy amount of money, and I thought it was going to do something for me, and it didn't. And so that's where the passion part comes in. If you're not doing something on a daily basis that you're really into,
Yep.
Doesn't matter what your bank account says at the end of the year. Yeah. It's going to get old.
Yeah.
So now, granted, I'd rather have that problem than the opposite, which is I can't afford anything.
For sure.
Because I've been there too.
No doubt.
But anyway, I think we've hammered that point home. Number 7, we said it a million times. We'll say it 1,000,001. It's all about service of others. Every person we interviewed, every guest, everything basically funneled down to the end product being, what can I do for other people?
Yeah.
The true joy that I find is, how can I serve others?
Yeah.
Number 8, this is a tough one still to this day. Learn to be okay with working without results. And I think about, the dumb example or the simple examples is fitness, right? It's losing weight. Your workout on 8:30 on a Tuesday morning doesn't lose those 50 pounds. It's the consecutive workouts on Tuesday morning when you don't want to go.
Yep.
That you didn't see a result from that day, that in the micro, but in the macro, that's what helped you ultimately. And so that was a big lesson. That's been a big lesson for me. I've learned this last few years, is being okay with working without seeing a tangible result. Another book, Atomic Habits, talks about little wins that you can give yourself and tricking yourself to keep the dopamine coming. But ultimately, it's being okay with the things I'm doing today may not yield a result today, but in 3 years they will.
That's right.
And that's a big lesson I've learned. Just a few more. Just 17 more.
Goodness. I had one.
Number 9, if it's something you don't want to do, it's probably something you should do. Now, again, that's a blanket statement, obviously. But I'm just sitting there thinking, there's been many, many, many examples of things that I didn't want to do and I dreaded doing, and then I left doing them thinking, I'm so glad I did that.
So, yeah.
That was so worth my time.
Very, very true.
It can be as dumb as a networking event that you don't want to go to, and then you end up meeting somebody there that it was a great spend of your time. Mm-hmm. It could be a chore that you want to do, that you need to do at anything, right? A workout, right? Things that I don't want to do usually are things that I should do.
Yeah.
I don't know if you share that.
I 100%
experience.
Agree. 100% agree.
Number 10, difference between activity and productivity. I hate giving one of our coworkers the credit for this. He was the first person I ever heard talk about it.
Yeah.
But I had, for a lot of years of my life, I put stock in being really active and really busy and really I'm doing all this work, when I realized that, no, you actually want to be productive, not active necessarily.
I'll say, in our defense, we were in a profession, or we were in a profession that activity led to productivity, right? It was, the more you move, the more you're active, the more you train, the more you play catch, the more you work on.
As long as they're things that are
right
in that realm.
But even so, it's still better to do something than better to do nothing.
Sure.
And there are guys that are like, work smarter, not harder. Well, that's not always beneficial in what we used to do.
Yeah.
So that was a hard habit. I'm the same
productivity.
Way.
How about that?
I'm the same way in every other area, most every other area of life. And I'm learning this right now, because in the cattle stuff that I'm starting to get into, I could go out and just fix fences all day long, literally all day long. That makes zero money.
Yeah.
So what am I investing in, and what am I being productive in, so that I can spend less time doing activities and more time doing things that will ultimately turn into revenue?
Yeah. There's a fine line in laziness and intelligence, smart. I think about, this is a bad example, but I think about my lawn. Having somebody come mow our yard, paying somebody to come mow, because that's 2 hours out of my week.
Yeah.
That now I can allocate my attention and time elsewhere.
Yeah.
So yes, am I spending a little bit of money for that? And is that a luxury? Absolutely. But now that's 2 more hours per week that I can go spend with my kids or my wife, or doing something else. Now again, there's certainly value to, if, for you like to get on your tractor and actually mow your grass.
That's a decompress time
right.
for me.
For you, that's therapy. For me, it was just a burden. It was 2 hours. It was just time that I wanted to be doing other things.
Yes, 100%.
And so obviously the person, the tractor would say, you're just lazy. You don't want to mow your grass. Well, maybe, but the real reason is that's 2 hours that I can spend somewhere else. Last 2. Number 11, social media may simultaneously be the worst thing ever created, but the best thing ever created. Yeah. So I would say it's the worst, best invention ever, social media. It has unlocked things for us in relationships and been so awesome in so many ways for us. But at the same time, it has been so detrimental to it. We shouldn't be knowing what Jim Bob is doing on the other side of the country at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday after. That shouldn't even be on my radar.
Yeah. By the way, Jim Bob's live close to us, not on the other side of the country.
That's true. Devin. I shouldn't know what Devin's doing with his day on Tuesday afternoon on the West Coast, right? That should not even be on my radar. Yeah. What should be on my radar is the relationships and the people in my inner circle. Yeah. And so again, it's got a lot of powerful things. David would argue that it helps him with his business, right? But for me personally, there's not a lot of value in social media at this point.
I mean, we had Tyler Anderson on, Casual Fridays marketing company. Same deal. That's his business. And personally, he has to remove himself from it. He goes, because it's one of those things that it can absolutely consume you and be detrimental to you. But from a business platform, it is beyond effective in reaching and connecting people to businesses. And think about how many businesses have spun up off of Instagram, TikTok, Facebook even. I mean, how many businesses have spun up just off of that alone?
Yeah. Oh, it's created. I mean, a massive opportunity.
Crazy.
Montana Knife Company wouldn't be who they are without social media.
No. Right? No. I mean, think like Cuts Clothing, Built Shirts, like 10,000 fitness apparel. I mean, there are so many brands that have spun up because of social media, because they had the reach. Now, they did the hard work of creating a good product, a great product.
Yeah, it's not easy, but it's easier than it's ever been, if you will.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's
not easy.
You'd argue it because you ran our social media. It's not easy to run social media.
Not easy at all.
So it's harder.
But it does give you a reach if you're really good.
The platform is there. Yes. It's a much bigger platform, I think. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of studying. It takes a lot. So I don't want to downplay those that have built a business around social media and use it, because it is hard work. Yeah. I think just when it becomes it infiltrates your personal life, that's when it becomes dangerous.
Yeah. And again, the nature of doing this podcast, part of that is you have to be informed, right? You have to be knowing what's going on. And the easiest way to be informed is to have a Twitter account or to have, social media. And so that's what I'm going to be glad about as well, is just removing, because I think we talked about this last week. Once this podcast is done, after this episode goes live, like maybe we'll give it 24 hours on our Instagram page, and then we're deleting it. And I'm not going to look at Instagram hopefully ever again.
Not deleting it. It'll probably stay up, right? Are you going to actually delete it?
No, it's going to be gone. It's going to be gone. The Instagram will be gone. The episodes will stay up. So come to the page for the full content.
Okay.
If you want it. But for me personally, there's no value in having an Instagram, personal or business, for this stage. Yeah. Now, one day maybe I start something and I do need an Instagram page to help spread the word and get the word out there.
Yeah.
But at this phase of my life, I would much rather focus on the real relationships that I have 100%. And the real people in my life, instead of looking at what Devin's doing over in Hawaii 100%. On Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah.
And then lastly, and I know we joke about it and give it a hard time, and we change the name, but you really do only get one go at this. Yeah. And I think that's been the biggest perspective, one of the biggest perspectives that I've gained these last several years, is that realization of this one shot, this one opportunity, this one go round. Now, again, if you're a religious person, you do believe there's a life after this. But the fact is, life on earth, you really only get, as far as we know,
one opportunity at eternity.
Right. As far as we know, you really only get one go at this thing called life. Yeah. And again, this podcast has helped me realize that. We talked about this before. I had a friend die suddenly in a car accident at 42 years old. I mean, and I think about him, he was literally having a conversation with his wife about who knows what. Mm-hmm. And the accident happens and his life is over. Like that, gone. And so if at any point, any moment, if you can really grasp that concept that this could all go away at any moment, the importance of what I focus my time on, the importance of what I get worked up about, the importance of what I think is important and what I think is truly worth my time. And now, again, I know it's hard because we don't always have the 30,000-foot view, but when you can back off a little bit and do realize you really only get one shot.
That's right.
What are you doing with that time?
That's right.
And that's been a huge revelation for me. So
I agree. It's a good list.
Yeah.
It's a long list.
Yeah.
You learned a lot more apparently than I did, so that's good.
Well, I just had some time, and I just wanted to. Again, I could probably jot down more notes, and that wasn't necessarily in order, but
no doubt.
I'll reiterate. I have zero regret for this starting. I'm so glad for so many reasons that we started this. I've learned it's been a PhD in human psychology. It's been a PhD in just so many things about how life works. And I'm so thankful, not only that you and Darren said yes, but that y'all continued to say yes. And we continue to go after this. Right? Because if any one of us, if either you or I had dropped off at any point, we probably wouldn't have kept going.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I'm so glad that we did this because it's been so valuable.
Yeah, it was a good pointer of how unimportant Darren is because we didn't skip a beat when he decided to not come. No, just kidding. But really though, I got a couple thank yous. First and foremost to our wives.
Yes. Shout out
for the support and really and an extra layer to Whitney, which is Ben's wife, for the amount of support that she's given all of us with scheduling.
She was our de facto assistant.
I mean, de facto COO / CFO.
That's
and
right.
she'd handle the financial aspects of it for the most part. I know you guys would work together on it, but like the amount that she did for us that she did not need to do.
Right.
And so Whitney, really thank you so much.
She won't ever hear this, but yeah,
I know.
I'll pass the word along.
I know. Tiff stopped listening in 21 too. So we're just really super grateful. And then just the time away. I mean, there's times that it's like, sorry, like we got something to do. Like, no. So appreciate y'all. And then you, honestly, the amount of work and heart and soul that you put into this podcast, it would not have been, it would have not have gone this long. It would have not gotten to this point. And so you were the engine that drove this podcast. There was so many times I just showed up and just BS'd. And the amount of work that you put in prior so that things would run smoothly, so that we knew what we were talking about, so that the guest was here, so that there was so much that you did. And it is not probably noticed by listeners, not noticed, but it was definitely noticed. I noticed it. So just thank you for everything that you did for the podcast. And then,
appreciate that.
I think relationship, I got to give a shout out to David and his team at Snacks Media, because
the best in the business,
what y'all have done for us, and taking things off of our plate.
Yes.
And the work that you did, it just elevated who we were.
Yeah. As crazy as we felt like things were, and as much as time as we had to put into this, the burden that Snacks Media and Dave and his team took off of us was immense. Yeah. I mean, there's no way we could have done 75% of the things we did. So a cheap plug for David and his team. If you are interested at all in video production, content creation, anything, you've got to give Snacks Media a call, because they not only is, and David, hopefully you don't mind us
no, go for
blowing smoke up your ass a little bit. I mean, not only is is their product good, they're solid dudes.
Yeah,
like and David, I can't think of one single time, not one, because I'm maniacal, right? I'll text him at 9:30 at night, 6 a.m. He answered me every single time. There was never an hour of the day where he was unavailable. Yeah. And to me, when somebody's on your team and has that work ethic, that's awesome. That's who you want to be working with. And so, David, I appreciate you for that work ethic.
I didn't say anything, but I was thinking it. 6 a.m. texts on Saturday mornings. It's like, what is this guy doing?
That's right. Ben? Yeah, what a
get a life.
But that's David though. Like he's constantly working. Now again, but he's also got a great eye on his family. So I'm not saying he's taking away from his personal responsibility. But my point is, if you're looking for somebody who's going to work as hard as you are,
that's right.
David and his team are the guys. So, no, I appreciate you, Tyler. I appreciate you saying that. Again, it was fun. It taught me a lot. All those little meaningless tasks or seemingly meaningless tasks, and going back and listening to episodes to pick out social media content and post, all the stuff I didn't love about it taught me so much. Yeah. I mean, it was a blast. So nobody made me do it. It was an absolute blast to do it. And I appreciate you for, like I said, not to blow smoke up both of our asses, but to be able to consistently show up week in and week out takes a lot of effort and time and diligence, right? It's not like it's easy to drive for you an hour and a half, literally one way to get to the studio to record. That's not easy.
Yeah.
Right. And so appreciate you for showing up and never.
I'll be honest too, man. It takes some intentionality for 357 shows to be 5 minutes to 10 minutes late. 300 of those. Like that's not.
You showed up early today.
You just don't show
beat me
up
here today.
Well, the problem is I plan on being here at 10 a.m. So I was only 45 minutes late for that. But it takes some intentionality to be late, consistently late. So,
but I think, and I'm sure you were headed to this. The biggest thank you, obviously, is to those of you listening.
Yeah,
and to anybody that's ever sent us a nice message. I know, Tyler, you got a lot of verbal feedback from people that listen. Send us a direct message on Instagram. However you left us a review on the podcast apps. However you showed that, shared it with a friend. We can't thank you enough because you allowed us to be able to take this ride. Yeah. Basically, because of you, we got to go have fun and do these cool interviews and do all this stuff because of you, because you guys listened. Yep. And so thank you, and huge shout out to those of you listening, whether you've been here for 5 minutes or since the beginning. Thank you so much for allowing us to get this free education in human psychology, free PhD. So thank you guys so much for listening. Any closing thoughts?
No,
words?
man. It's David's got something.
David, you got something?
I'd like to share two of my favorite.
Oh, please. Yeah. Sorry. Didn't even
I thought the Uriah Hall episode was really good.
That was a good one.
And one thing that he said was, everybody just says they want to be happy, air quotes. And he said, happiness comes in moments. And you can live in peace, but the way he put it was so great, just because him winning a fight, that's a happy moment.
Yeah.
But when he's training, he's not happy during those times of training, but he's probably at peace with the work he's putting in.
Yeah.
So that, I don't know, that was a really good, one of my favorite moments. And then one time me and Ben, this wasn't on the episode, on the podcast, but one time me and Ben were talking about some podcast we listened to, and we asked Darren if he had heard it or something. And he said, when you're doing it, you don't have time for that stuff. And that stuck with me because it was like, man, I just need to be doing it. I don't need to be listening about how to do it. I just need to do it.
Yeah.
And he didn't mean anything mean by that or anything.
No.
He was just completely honest. I don't have time for that stuff. I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And so those are just two.
No, that's a huge lesson. It's coming from somebody who's a consumer of information. I love, I get off and my high comes from consuming information. You're absolutely right, David. That's a massive lesson of you can sit there and learn it all day long and consume and this is what to do. But until you actually take action on it, it's worthless. It's meaningless information. It's just, it makes you feel good, but it doesn't really do anything. So that's a massive point. Absolutely.
Point. Yeah, good job.
Love it.
No, that's it. I'm gonna miss these moments, miss these conversations. Yeah, for sure. It's gonna be hard. I think you and I both will go through a period where we're just like, oh, should we have? Yeah, should. But I think, again, our decision and our conviction and focus, putting our focus at this phase in our life where we are going to, and I think it's the right move. But yeah, this is tough, man, because it's been a long time. Really, it's, there's very few things that I've done consistently for 3 years. Yeah. There's a short list.
That's a great point.
So,
my ask for many of you, if you appreciated all what we've done these last 3 years, my ask is to do what Tyler and I intend to do, which is to go out, everything we've talked about, everything we've learned, everybody we've heard from, is now go out and apply it in your community.
Yep.
It's no secret that our society is heading in a direction that none of us like, or most of us don't like. And so now it's imperative to stop consuming information, but less consuming and more
get off the
application.
sidelines and get
That's
in the
right.
game.
That's right. So that's what I envision. The time that I dedicate, I've proved to myself I have time for things I want to do. And so now it's replacing the time and energy that was spent consuming the last 3 years. Now it's going out in my community and bettering my community, bettering my family, bettering all the lessons that we talk about.
That's right.
So if you've ever appreciated or been thankful for this podcast, that would be our ask, is that now you go out there in your community, wherever it is that you live, and you apply these things that you've learned. Yeah. Don't just, oh, that was a cool podcast, that was fun. No, let's go out now and let's individually change our ecosystem and impact those people that are around us. I think if we can all do that, all the people listening to this, we're obviously going to turn things in the right direction, headed to the right way. So if you don't have any more closing thoughts for the last time,
that's it.
Hope you all have a great rest of your week, a great weekend, and we will see you sometime.
When we see you.
Thanks, everybody.